So again, when you're creating your HTML file, you can create a quick architecture of how it should look, but with the HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag. Again, everything within the body tag is what displayed on the screen. So if I refresh that like so, I get hello world. Any questions on creating the HTML tag, the head tag, and the body tag? All right. And this title that goes in the head, this is what actually is displayed in your tab. So like HTML, if I type in HTML, click here, see how it says document. If I refresh it, it's going to say HTML. So that's where the title goes of your web page. All right. With that, if we actually want to make things look pretty, so if HTML is the studs and the walls of a house, but we want to actually make it look pretty, how do we go about doing that?
CSS.
CSS. And what does CSS stand for?
Cascading style sheets.
Awesome. So if we want to actually style our web page, so this hello world isn't just this little, isn't just this black hello world. If we actually want to style it, we can use cascading style sheets. And we can do that. There's like 3 different ways we can do that. We can do it inline. So we can actually inline inside of this H1 tag. I'm going to type in style equals, and then whatever tag or whatever CSS I want. And we'll talk about CSS first or in a second. So I want to change the color of this hello world to, let's say, blue. And what's nice is that VS Code allows us to like change our colors using this thing if we want, and we can change it specifically to an RGB or RGBA value or even a hex. So if I change it like that, now well, I guess that's not that great of a blue. And also I'll just type in light blue. And now you can see it's light blue. It's not even that great. Blue. There we go. So this is called inline styling, and you can do it. You can style your web page like this, but it isn't best practice to do that. There's a couple other ways you can do it. You can actually create a style. So a style tag inside of your head tag, because again, your head is what you want to load inside of your web page. So here inside the style, I want to target this H1 tag and change the color. So I can target this specific H1 tag by either doing just H1. See if this works. Is it .h1? Does anyone remember?
I think it's just like you had it.
Just like this?
Yeah, I believe so.
I'm just wondering. Oh, okay. Do not use empty. I was wondering why I was giving it. I can do color blue. There we go. Or let's go ahead and make it red. And now I can refresh that. And now it's red. So let's talk about styling for a second, or CSS. So when it comes to CSS, there's a couple, it's called cascading style sheets because it's a style guide, or it's a style, and it's cascading because it reads from top to bottom, and whatever comes last takes precedence. So if I did H1 again, and I did color turquoise, like so, if I refresh it, it's turquoise. Even though I targeted this specific H1 tag up here, and I changed the color to red, I also targeted the H1 right here and changed it to turquoise. So it just reads top to bottom, and the one that comes at the end takes precedence. But how do I said like H1, it targets this H1 tag. So when it comes to CSS, the syntax is, it goes selector, like what you actually want to select to change the style of, followed by parentheses. So you have your selector, and then you have the property of what you actually want to do. So do you want to target the color? Do you want to target the margin? Do you want to target the width? Target the border? So you can target, so whatever property you want to target, and then followed by the value of what you're trying to change. But you always don't forget to put a semicolon at the end. So for example, here, my selector is this H1 tag, which will select every single H1 tag on the page. So if I had an H1 tag here, some more information. Goodbye. So this targets each H1 tag in the entire web page. So if I refresh this, it targets every single H1 tag. But say I don't want to purely have all the H1 tags the same color of red. There's a way we can target a little more specifically. Let's just change that. Title. Some more information. H2. Paragraph. All right. So we have a title, an H2 tag, and a paragraph tag. Let's add, I'm just gonna add some more stuff. Lorem ipsum. Did I misspell it? So if I just wanted some random text, some like filler text, I can use what they call as lorem ipsum. It's literally just random text that fills the web page for practice purposes. All right. So I've targeted this H1 tag. What if I wanted to make this lorem ipsum a different color? So I can either target the paragraph tag, but if I target the paragraph tag, it's also going to change this specific paragraph tag. So I can target elements by a class or an ID. So for example, this H2 tag, or I'll do this H1 tag. I'm going to make have a class attribute called title. Just called page title. And I can target, instead of using H1 tags, I can target the class page title by doing dot page title. So to target a class name, I can do dot page title. And if I refresh this, everything still stays the same. So with classes, you can have more than one element, such H1, H2, P tag, div, this P tag. You can have more than one element that has the same class. So for example, maybe I want this paragraph tag to also have red. So I can do class page title, class page title. This is probably not a good description of this class name. What did I just do? So if I refresh this, now this is a paragraph tag is also red. So H1 tag, what the hell is going on? I can specifically target the element. So H1, maybe this H1, I also want to have a font size of, 46 pixels. If I change that, refresh it, now it's bigger. So I targeted this specific H1 tag to have 46 pixels, but I also targeted these two class names of page title right here to be red. So again, classes, you can have more than one element have the same class name. Now you can get even more specific for ID. So you can also have an ID. Now with IDs, only one element on the entire page can have the ID of subheader right here. So if you think about it, a class can contain a bunch of different students. So a bunch of different students belong to a class. So you can have more than one class name belong to an element. Where ID is very specific. Everyone has a unique ID, whether it's a social security number or a school ID. So no one else can have the same ID as this specific H2 tag. Now I can target this specific ID by doing a # or hashtag subheader. And I can make this font size a 20 pixels. I can have a margin top of 20 or 10 pixels, something like that. Now if I refresh that, what happened? I messed up the subheader. Make it 50 just for the hell of it. There we go. Now I can also inspect the CSS of this page. So I come over here, I click that little arrow button, and now I can highlight over that subheader and notice how in that little pop-up, it says H2 hashtag subheader. That means it has an ID of a subheader. And you can see some elements or some attributes from it. So it's got a color, it's black, font, it's 20 pixels. It has margin, 50 pixels top, 0 pixels left and right, and 16.6 pixels at the bottom. And you can also see that down here. This hashtag subheader, I can add and remove that tag, that styling from it if I wanted to. Or I can even add styling to it, like border. Is it solid? Does anyone know the border element or the border? How that works? Is it?
I think it's just border.
Border.
Is it border? But it needs to know. All right, so
The
border
your
solid.
size.
One
You need a
PX solid
size.
blue.
Blue, there we
Yeah.
go. So let's do blue ice. Yeah, there we go. I'll do dark blue. And make this 4 pixels. So here I can test out down here by adding styling to this. Why is it? Oh yeah. So for border, it takes 3 elements to it, or 3 things to it. The type of border, whether it's a solid border, a dash border, or there's some other ones. The width of the border, as well as the color of the border. So I can do that and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks good. I can copy this over to subheader. Might need it like so. And there we go. So now if I actually refresh it, it kind of stays the same. And maybe I want margin bottom to be 0. I can refresh that. And now I can inspect that. And now you can see margin 50, margin left and right, 0, margin bottom 0. If I click on that, and where is it? If I scroll down right here, if I go to computed, there's something called the box model. So every element is a box. So if I hover over, if I'm highlighted the subheader, the H2 tag, and if I highlight the middle of that box, that's the content that lies in the middle. It says some more information and takes up the entire width of the page. So it's 776.8 pixels wide by 23.2 pixels high or long. Now I can go to the padding. Padding, there isn't any padding. You can see right here, there's no padding there. There's no padding there. All the way around, there's no padding. Now the border is 4 because it's 4 pixels each. So you can see I've got 4 pixels for the border. And then for the margin, it's 50 pixels top margin and 0 pixels on the right, left and right and bottom margin. So that's called the box model, and every element has that. So if I come over here, same thing. But for margin, I'm doing margin top and bottom, but you can combine all the margin sides into one selector, one element, or one property. If you just do margin, and just like you're doing down here with solid space 4 pixels, space dark blue, you can start from the very top. So I'm going to do like 10 pixels at the very top. I'm going to do 20, I'll do like 50 pixels for the right. I'll do 5 pixels for the bottom, and I'll do 10 pixels to the left. And now if I refresh this, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it for padding. So again, padding is what's between the text, the some more information, and the border. So if I refresh that, it's going to look kind of weird. All right. So if I come over here and click on that, now you can see the padding, 10 on the top, 50 on the right, 5 on the bottom, 10 on the left. Same thing with the margin. I have the both equal one another, and you can see where the padding lies within on the screen. That's kind of where it's green at. Any questions on the different properties you can have? Does anybody want to see anything specific? Does anybody have any questions on being classes, IDs, and tags? So when it comes to precedence, for example, maybe each element can have a class as well as an ID attached to it, like so. And let me actually do color green. Now I'm going to add that on top of there. If I refresh that, so I said it's cascading style sheets. So the value that comes at the very end takes precedence. So if page title is a class and I'm doing the color is green or red, but I also have subheader, which is an ID that belongs to that paragraph, and that has a color of green. And red comes after green, but the color is still green. Does anybody know why?
More specific.
Yep. So when it comes to specific, I can't even say it, more specific. So IDs take precedence over classes, and classes take precedence over tags. So if I have an ID, the values or the properties within the ID take precedence over the properties that in the class. So IDs take precedence over classes, and classes take precedence over tags.
There's also the important attribute, which is like a sledgehammer. It kind of trumps everything. They're
Yes,
not a good idea to use though.
correct. Yeah, so you can use important by saying like, hey, this color is super important. It takes precedence over everything inside the entire application. So if I do that, then it changes it to red, but it's not best good practice to use the important. There's probably a better way to architect your CSS.
So when you're saying that ID and class take precedence over tags, you mean like if you had some inline style in a tag, that it would take precedence over that, or just a default value?
Wait, say it again. So
Say like down in one of your paragraph tags, you have class right there, but you also add some inline style to that paragraph tag.
so
The class would still take precedence over that, right?
I think inline styling takes
Inline gonna take precedence.
yeah, so inline styling takes precedence, but again, it's not best practice to use inline styling. But you can, but yeah, so if you have style down here, or style down here and say color equals what, pink, like so, that should take precedence. But yeah, inline styling, not best practice if you already have using styling up here. Could also use a border. So as I'm typing this, you can see all the different border border selectors or border properties. So I can do border radius. I could say 50, or I'll do 10 pixels. You can use percentages or pixels. If I do that, you can see I just created a border radius. Like so. Or I can do percentages as well. Say 50%. And that is going to make an oval. Like so. Because it goes to it's essentially when the arch actually starts. It's going to start at the very halfway through the width of the page or width of the element. And speaking of width of the element, maybe I want to change the width of the element to only be 20% of the entire page. If I do that, so this width is 20% of this entire page right here. I can also do like, as if align, text align. Text align is always difficult, trying to get stuff to align. Like so. So it's not really centered, but yeah. All right. Any questions on this so far? All right. There is a third way where we can do our styling, and doing it directly in our HTML file is not best practice. What we can do is extract this styling and put it in a totally separate file, which is what we'll do. So I'm going to create a totally separate file called style or styles.css because it's a cascading style sheet file, like so. Uh-oh. And I'm going to copy just the styles over, like so. I'll get rid of all. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of this style tag in the head. And now I'm going to need to import this style sheet to my HTML file. So in order to do that, inside my head, again, inside the head is where I load all external information I want. So I want to load this styles.css file into this HTML file. And I'll do that via the link tag. So I'm going to do link style sheets and href styles.css. And again, this doesn't have a closing tag. It's just like this. And this href is where in relation to this index.html file is the styles, the CSS file located at. So if I refresh that, everything still works. And in here, I use that bang to quickly create that boilerplate, but there's also other ones. So I'm going to do HTML. I can go down to HTML5 boilerplate, and it gives me a lot more boilerplate items I can use. Like right here, it automatically gives me that link tag. It also gives me the script down here if we want to load JavaScript. So href styles.css. And everything should still work. Any questions on the different properties? Anything anybody want me to try to do real quick? No. Just remember classes, in order to target the class, it uses a period followed by the class name. For IDs, it's a hashtag or a pound sign followed by the ID you want to target. And if you want to target specifically the tag, you just target the H1 tag.
Can you do the parent-child target an element with the parent and the child with CSS?
Let's see.
Like that lorem ipsum paragraph would be like div right angle bracket P.
Yep. So if I want to do, yeah, div right angle bracket paragraph.
I think it's the other way.
The other way. I'm trying to think of like an actual use case for it. So like if I wanted to, and we'll cover more of this. So if I had like two of these down here, and so right here, I've got two of these right here. And I'm going to say just for all intensive purposes, second paragraph tag. So as we mentioned earlier, we have child, parents. If you want to, so here, for example, I've got I'm going to do this first. Color, red. So I'm doing the paragraph dot first child. I just want to see if this works. If I'm thinking, all right. Oh, I guess it already worked. Yeah. It's actually, I'm going to add a div up here. I'm going to add. So I've got a div followed by these two these two paragraph tags. And I have another div that has these two lorem ipsum tags. So, oh, it's still not working. Oh, I know why. Interesting. Page title, I'm just gonna get rid of that. All right, so this p dot first child, it grabs the first child that is a paragraph tag. So this paragraph tag is the first child of this div tag, and this paragraph tag is the first child of this div tag. So if I wanted to only target, say, this tag, I can either add like an ID, like info section, and I can say hashtag info. I think this should work. Info section, first child. And now it's only targeting the info section right here. And it's grabbing the paragraph's first child. So this is the very first child of that info section. And I can also do, I think it's like second child or last child or nth child, I think it is. Nth. So you can do like last child, which would be the second paragraph tag. So now that's red. Or if there's like more than 3 or 2 or more, you can do nth, I think nth child 2. And that would, I think, target the middle one. Yeah, so that would target the middle one. So it's the second child. And if I want to do the third child, which would also be the last child, like so. But that gets into a little more advanced stuff. You don't need to know about that right now, but that's how you can access specific children inside of your HTML. Any other questions? That was a good one. All right.